We're on. Fantastic. Welcome to the August 13th, 2019 Facilities Committee meeting of the Radnor Township School District. I'd like to start off with introductions and administrative remarks by the administration.
Sure, we actually have a couple announcements. Every year, under the EPA guidelines for lead in water, we are required to disclose to the board and the public as to what we do with lead in testing for it. It's been tested last year and came back with no hits. We are adopting a philosophy under the EPA guidelines of flushing the lines out on a periodic basis to ensure that nothing ever builds up in the lines. And then periodically we'll test that moving forward every couple of years. There is really no additional need to be concerned because, again, we came back as negative hits before. If we were to have one, we certainly address it right away. But at this point, everything was the areas were tested and we're fine. So we are required to let you know that we're going to be doing the flushing system under the EPA guidelines. Also, we're required to let you know that the custodial and maintenance staff is going to be receiving a HERA, which is the Asbestos Hazardous Emergency Response Act training, Right to Know training, which would be the old MSDS, which is the material data sheets, so they can read those and understand those, as well as bloodborne pathogen training that, again, all custodial and maintenance staff will get that. As another administrative update, the Madison Ford footbridge is now open in front of Radnor Elementary School. That opened up earlier last week, mid last week. On your final agenda, one of the other item that you'll see is the disposal of equipment. We have many items that we've identified over the summer that have been obsolete for years and that we're looking to clear out some of the spaces. So you'll see that on the agenda moving forward. And lastly, for next month's meeting, Michelle Dyko and I will be presenting to you about the Radnor Aquatic Club contract is up for renewal, and some of the details involved with their current contract and the actual costs. We've done some cost breakdowns as to what it actually costs us to run the pool, so that we can have an agreement moving forward for however long the board desires, that certainly meets the needs of hopefully everybody involved.
Okay. Fabulous, thanks. Next up is public comment.
Oh, one other thing.
Or not.
So one other thing I just want to let you know is, it was not on the agenda, but I had gotten requests as to what summer projects we have done. So if you could bear with me, I'll go through this by school. The high school, the acid wash and minor repairs of the pool is complete. The pool has been refilled. The gym floor has been sanded, relined, and refinished, and the kids were on there Monday playing volleyball and as well as other sports. We had several dead trees removed. Largely, the trees seemed to be attacked by the ash borer disease that's going around, and so we've had several of those removed. And then Penn has installed the trail handicap sidewalk connectors, or in the process of doing that at the intersection of Raider Road and King of Prussia Road. For Wayne Elementary, there's several dead trees again that were removed. We had some fence clearing. We have a fence up along the back end of the property that seems to overgrow quite often, so we did some fence clearing. Removal of existing playground equipment. If you recall, the board had accepted from the PTO a donation of some playground equipment and then allotted $25,000 for installation. That's due to begin tomorrow, weather permitting, but in-house forces removed the existing playground equipment during the past 2 days. 2 classrooms up there had some carpet replacement. The carpets were in very poor condition. And then as well as we had the gym climbing wall and ropes inspected for safety, which is an annual requirement that we have. At Ithan, we had an air compressor, AC compressor that had to be replaced. Right at school, which is, if you recall, is our before school and after school vendor. We were able to work with them to get into the rooms that they need to be in the mods. And at this point, they have 2, but they're looking to go to a 3rd because, as I understand it, they have that much in the way of attendance. People signed up. And then we also readied 3 classrooms. We had to do some modifications because of increased enrollments in that building, and we did what we needed to do to make those classrooms ready for students moving forward. Radnor Elementary School, we replaced the carpeting in the library. We created a makerspace area in the library, which is a VCT tile area, so that things, if they're spilled on the floor, can be easily cleaned up. We performed a high cleaning in the gym, which apparently had never been done before, so we got a lift and cleaned out, multiple layers of dust that has accumulated over the years. We're in the process of installing some new LED lights in the gym, and then 2 classrooms had carpet replaced there as well. The middle school, we had 2 classrooms that seem to be consistently flooded with the rains that we get here, and the carpet itself became problematic, so we ripped that up and changed that over to VCT tile, which will be easier for us to clean up, and we've taken some mitigation measures outside to minimize the amount of water that can enter the building, although I can't control the weather yet. We're working towards that. We also painted the cafeteria, a line around the cafeteria, which makes it look much nicer, and several things in the food service area. The bus garage, which we'll go into a little bit later on, but we set up the interior for the drivers, and the trailer is now delivered for Monday, scheduled to be Monday. We had the contractor mulch and the flower beds and ready for back to school. Custodians really have done an outstanding job cleaning the buildings, making it ready for the schools. They've done a top-notch job. We should be very proud of them. The district office, you may notice the cones out in front of our parking lot. A new sinkhole has developed. It was a small hole. We excavated it out in-house, filled it up with stone, and we're planning to put a concrete, I would call it a concrete bridge. It would be a concrete walkway from sidewalk to sidewalk across the front of the driveway, hopefully eliminating the need for future work on sinkholes out there, which seem to be caused by stormwater out there. Also, we anticipate in the district office putting down the second floor flooring as well as stair treads after school begins. My focus for the facilities have been to get the schools ready for the students, and the district office can wait until after the kids are in place, since while people here might think they impact the students, this building doesn't impact the students as much as the classroom would. So my goal was to make sure the schools were taken care of. And with that, I turn that over to you. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, Ken can wait to fix.
Or Ken.
And I just want to mention, Patty Booker is connected via phone. She's running late, so she'll be here. She's on speaker. Fantastic.
Now it's time for public comment. Is there any public comment? If anyone would like to come speak, come up to the table here and turn on the microphone, and you can sign in over on the side when you're done. Just push that green button there to turn the microphone on.
Good evening. I'm Allie Bauer, and I'm a rising junior at Radnor High School. I'm speaking on behalf of my high school environmental club that I co-founded 2 years ago. The club has gathered support from many students like me throughout the years with involvement inside and outside of school. A large population of students, including myself, care about the effects of climate change and how we're already starting to feel them. We want our township to make a change for the better. In doing this, our club has been working closely with Sarah Pilling and Robin Mann from the Ready for 100 initiative. The goal of clean energy is so important to us because we fear the future of a world overcome by air pollution and an unimaginable climate. With the help of PICO, we got to see the energy usage reports of the Radnor Township building. Our overuse is so drastic that we could save over $30,000 a year on that one building alone. In addition, many clean energy solutions contribute to healthier learning environments for students and lead to lower absenteeism. Also, clean energy school districts alleviate air pollution and climate change, making the community safer for everyone. The students are interested in collaborating with the district to make these improvements a reality. Currently, the Radnor Township building uses almost as much energy between the hours of 6 a.m. and 12 a.m. as during the day. This is problematic considering people work in the building all day, but hardly anyone is there during the late night and early morning. Specifically, installing energy-efficient lighting can save Radnor up to 7% in energy funds, which is almost $7,000 a year. Likewise, enhancing our ventilation control is expected to save 9% or over $8,000 a year. Through the incorporation of changes such as these, Radnor can save large amounts of money that can be placed towards academics or enrichment programs and overall lessen our carbon footprint. Completing more PICO energy evaluations on Radnor's public buildings will bring awareness towards ways to improve our community's efficiency. All PICO needs is the district's electric bills. This requires only written permission and the bank account numbers. Please consider allowing PICO permission to access this. There is no cost for PICO to perform any energy assessment on every building associated with the school district, so we can attain this evaluation very easily. All that we need, like I said, is permission. There is a growing movement of school districts throughout the country leading the way towards a healthy future for students. I'm here because I think Radnor should be a part of this movement before our situation is irreversible. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll have you get in touch with Ally. I'll have you get in touch with Mr. Brooks.
Sure. I'd be welcome. I'm very much interested working with your committee, but just so you know, I welcome the Pico Energy evaluations to validate what I've already come up with and what I'd like to do moving forward. Pico already has our information because I get a weekly update as to our energy usage compared to the week before, month before, and year previous. And so far, we have been trending downward. Now, the only one that we've been trending upward in the past 2 or 3 months is the transportation center, because the transportation center had the fire. We really weren't using much energy in there. We didn't have the air conditioning running, HVAC. We've re-implemented, as we're going to go to in a little bit, some things so that that's going up as it should, and it's not as efficient as it will be. But I welcome working with your committee.
Okay. Next up is the minutes. Did you guys read them?
Wait, yes, any other
Or-
public comment?
Oh, right. Anybody else? Public comment? Sorry. Ankle Clan, anybody?
Roberta Winters, I just wanted to commend all those hardworking members of our custodial staff. I know what the summer is like for them. And I would also encourage Mr. Brook, if he would be so kind, is to encourage the DC, Delaware County Intermediate Unit, to not only follow your example in terms of the lead flushing, but also to encourage the development of a program in Delaware County, because we do not have a public health department that is addressing lead for people and students in their homes. And I think when we look at the impact on student learning, lead levels are a significant factor. So I think that is an issue that we, with the help of school districts across the county, we may in fact be able to begin sampling lead in residential areas as well as in our schools. Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once? Miss Addis? Going twice? No. Okay, moving right along to the first agenda item, the High School Infrastructure Committee recommendation. Or the minutes, sorry. I already thought I did the minutes because I said the minutes before. Did you guys read the minutes? I don't have any
did.
changes. You?
I did, and they're fine.
Yeah, they were fine.
Fantastic. All right.
Trust us.
So now on to the first thing.
So just as a point of reference, if you recall, several months ago, actually prior to my arrival, the board had convened a subcommittee to study and take a look at the high school bleachers and some of the athletic facilities, some deficiencies that we have at the high school. That committee met several times prior to my arrival, and since my arrival, many times after that. They worked with the Schrader Group to come up with a feasibility study, and that was presented to this committee several months ago. At that time, the board had approved the district to interview architect firms to take this to the next level. With that being said, we interviewed 3 different groups. The committee and representatives of administration interviewed 3 different groups: the Schrader Group, who was here originally, the Breslin Group out of Allentown area, and a group called KCBA out of the Hatboro-Hatfield area. They each had an opportunity for an hour to spend with the committee. They made a presentation, PowerPoint presentation, and answered numerous questions. After some consideration with the committee and then checking some references, it was deemed that we would like to recommend the Breslin Group to proceed moving forward with putting together a plan for us for the high school infrastructure. Athletic infrastructure.
Yeah,
sorry.
I think we started to talk about this in June as a committee. What started as we were calling the bleacher project, because it was expanding beyond just the bleachers. Some have mentioned that we should be calling it the high school athletic infrastructure. That's why. So that's the title there. So I just want to make sure everybody was clear with that. Is that okay with the committee?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's good because it more accurately reflects what the analysis has been and what we're working to do.
Each one of the consultants, when we talked about, when I called them to talk about fees, as with most architects, in the years past, they would go ahead and come up with a design knowing the board would likely approve things moving forward and that they would get a fee off of that moving forward. They have gotten burned several times, as they pointed out, in the past, where they have extended quite a bit of money and have a board come back and go, well, we changed our mind, we don't want to do something. So each one of the groups wanted to charge us a fee up front to put together the actual design, and then they put it out for bid, and they would get paid based upon that 6% of whatever that construction fee is. With Breslin, I had conversation with him, lengthy conversations with them, and we were able to come up with an agreement that basically has us going to not to exceed $24,000 for the plan, $24,000 for the putting together the plan. And then if we were to go ahead and proceed, the board were to proceed, and the construction costs are more than $12,000, we would get that $24,000 back. If it's something less than $12,000, then we would get a percentage of that back. So basically, they've already committed the money up front, but they know they're going to get something back at the end. Most architect firms don't want to go ahead and take that on speculation. So this way, we have a fee set not to exceed. And then if we were to proceed, and if it would be more than $12 million, we would get that $24,000 credited back to us. If it were to be less than $12 million, then it would be a percentage of that $24,000. It would be rebated back to the district.
Wait, say that last part again. So I get the first part, not to exceed
Yep.
24. If we end up approving a project that's more than 12 million, we'll
12
get back the 24, but then there's some fee structure included in the 12 million.
Yes, the 12 million would be a 6%, as all architect fees would charge you.
6%, thank you.
6% of the construction costs.
And if it's less, if we choose to do a project that's less than 12 million,
It's still 6%, but you'll get a percentage of the 24,000 back. It won't be 100% of it.
so it will be some portion of the 24,000 back plus 6%?
Correct.
Okay, I'll have to do the math in a minute here to calculate that out. But thank you for explaining.
Sure.
Now
Oh, thank you. Oh, sorry. You should have told me that.
I just
What I was
noticed.
saying was just clarifying the way you were doing the fee structure. It's up to 24 we pay. If we do over 12 million, they refund us that, but we pay a 6% fee. If we do something between 0 and 12 million, we'll pay the 6% fee and we'll get some portion of the 24,000
Correct.
back.
Correct.
They just don't want to do all the work and then get hooked.
Listen, I fully respect that. I don't know why they wouldn't just basically credit the 24,000 toward the 6%.
They are if it's over $12 million.
Okay, so we're saying the same thing two different ways.
Yes.
Okay, I get it. All right, thank you.
Patty?
So at this point, we'd like to make a recommendation that we proceed, the board gives permission for us to enter into a contract with Breslin. We have set up parameters that we'd like to have a plan available to the board by November
Yeah, but
2019.
which board? This
Well,
committee
this
or the
committee to
business?
recommend to the full
Okay,
board,
yeah,
the full
'cause we
board
want
at
to
the end
get
of the
this
month.
going.
Yeah.
So,
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for plugging me in. I could hear pretty much the whole thing. Part of the reason that we've had problems in the past of canceling projects is because we didn't do the finance understanding up front. So I guess I'm asking this board, what has been done with regards to understand our ability to finance something in $12 million range? And is that on some discussion somewhere?
We had at the finance meeting last month, we had a presentation from Zach Willard about what it might look like to float a bond and what some of that could look like. We had an overview.
That was June, just.
Oh, I'm
Right,
sorry,
but-
June, last
but
finance meeting.
has there been actual discussion amongst the board about our willingness and appetite for floating a bond and incremental cost to the district for cost of capital, et cetera, et cetera? Has there actually been a discussion and some agreement from the board that we actually are going to entertain a $12 million project?
Bless you.
So we've been having that conversation. I think the big facilities committee meeting of the whole that we had 2 months ago was when that occurred. You were here.
No, I wasn't. I was traveling.
Okay, so you may
It was
wanna-
not clear to me from the outcome of that meeting that the board had agreed that we're looking at a $12 million cost of a project and that we were willing to move in that area of cost.
Yeah,
So-
we talked about it at the big, am I not? No, I'm on. At the big facilities meeting, then we talked about it that was the big subject of, last finance meeting, right? When we had the,
Bond
can't think
council.
tonight. Yeah, we had bond council here, and then we had the
Right,
community college here. We had all kinds.
we brought bond counsel to also look at what is our current debt and what else, where,
We
you know,
can
what is our
service
ceiling
and-
if we're taking on a current debt.
Right.
And I'll let members of the board jump in to, summarize and make sure I'm summarizing correctly from other members of the board, but the feasibility study and the discussions with the board has been the recognition that this needs to be done. There is still, I think, discussion over exactly what does the design look like, so that's why we've gone to the architect now to take what has been in the feasibility concepts and really develop that, design. And then that final design that the board, we settle on as a board is going to then dictate, the costs. There have been discussions, though, of ranges. Thanks to the feasibility study, there were some ranges of costs that were presented and discussed, and then that's when we brought in then, bond counsel and brought in, to look at our finances, and Zach came into the meeting to just discuss potentials. So it's really been potentials have been discussed.
So what's the outline of what we're asking for from Breslin?
So the outline of what we're asking for from Breslin is Breslin will provide, their scope of work will include to facilitate a program and meeting with the district representatives to discuss the study and establish goals that we want moving forward. They will have 3 public community engagement meetings, which is away from the committee, but the whole committee will meet with the public to present any ideas and gather additional input. They will develop the construction project options, cost estimates, phasing, and schedule. They will collect and report selected benchmarking data to compare what we're looking to do with 6 to 8 similar regional institutions' size, capacity, and amenities, which is something that the committee had asked for. Prepare a comprehensive written document that is clear, concise, and actionable, because many times with architects and the one thing about Breslin is they have a great reputation that their documents are very tight, their drawings are very tight, and not subject to nuisance change orders. They will include an executive summary and narrative. They will, again, bring in civil engineering to consult with ELA, which is a group that deals with fields before, as well as fire protection consultants, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. Engineering firms will also be included. Hazard material, asbestos abatement consultants will be included.
So Patty, if I could just jump in here for a second. I would echo Mike's comments that the committee of the whole meeting that we had a few months ago, although we didn't have uniform agreement or unanimous agreement, we certainly had majority, I would even say probably 7 of us for sure, who are supportive of moving forward with a project that is beyond just the replacement of the bleachers. That being said, no cost estimates were there, or cost estimates were, but in a very schematic kind of way, and a lot more information is needed. So then the finance committee said, all right, well, if we're even going to entertain this, let's have Zach come in, talk to us about what's our current debt obligation, what might it even look like to float a qualified bond and a not qualified bond. Now, he took some numbers randomly that at the time I said, yeah, we're not taking out a $20 million bond. And he brought in numbers for qualified. He did under 10, and then he did up to 20. We have not taken that back to the full board in a formal fashion, nor do I think we should. My concern with getting a set approval from the board today, tomorrow, next month, this month, whatever, to say, oh yeah, we all agree we're going to spend $10 million or $9 million is, I promise you we will end up with a project that no matter what it is conceptually, will cost the TAC. They'll fill the money. And so I think we're kind of playing, okay, we understood the parameters, the finance committee did, and when the board had the meeting as a committee of the whole, we understood that there would be a price tag here that was, more significant than what we've put away for just the replacement of the bleachers. But we did not commit to a number that night, nor did we commit to a scope of the project. We just conceptually agreed that we are going to work on the ADA issues, the safety issues, and and some amenity issues that need some more attention than we maybe originally thought. So I think probably the next step here is to have the Breslin group move forward. I do think that starting with a not to exceed is a good place so that they can do some good faith work and not feel like they're going to get, lost in the lurch. I have a little bit of an issue with the math. I'm going to talk to you about that in a second. Let them come back to us with some ideas. Concurrently, as they're coming back to us with some numbers, we can be saying to the board, I envision there's going to be a night very soon where we're going to need to have a joint, I would say a joint finance and facilities meeting, except it's the four of us, so a committee of the whole, where we're going to need to talk about, here are some of the options, here are some of the price tags that go with those options, here are the options for financing A, B, and C, and where will our board land? I can't say tonight where we're going to land. That conversation is coming very soon, but it sounds to me, Mark, like as if the Breslin group, of assuming we go forward with them, are going to nail down some more specifics, nail down some more numbers. We did a very preliminary, what would it even look like to finance it with some bond. We do know we have some money in capital. Michelle's not here for finance tonight, so it's not a particularly productive conversation to have tonight. There'll be some back and forth, and I fully anticipate that this fall we'll have some committee of the whole as well as some community group meetings.
So I appreciate that you just outlined that, because that, I expect nothing less when we're talking
Sure.
about spending that kind of money.
Absolutely.
Especially when we have other things that we need to be worried about, that I am still very concerned about how we're financing it. I still come
Okay.
back to my same thing, and I'm going to just say it because
Sure.
I'm a broken record. This was about fixing the bleachers, and we are not fixing the bleachers this year, and we won't fix them next year if we have a project of this magnitude. And that's a problem for me. I did see that we put up the I don't know what you want to call them, railings, I guess I'll call them, on the bleachers at least on the top and down the one side for the turf field on the lacrosse side.
Field, yes.
I appreciate that they're there, but that doesn't address the full, problem on those bleachers, at least the way people are using them. I don't think they were originally intended to be used the way they're being used, which is another part of the issue. But I don't think it relieves us of what the concerns are on those bleachers, and certainly not on the bleachers at the high school.
Agreed.
So I'll just broken record it again. I fully believe we need to separate these two projects. We have gold-plated this, and we are holding up the bleacher project that needs to be done so that we could have some other athletic improvements that I believe are separate and should be treated separately. So I'll just say it again, and I'll keep saying it, I guess, until my last day on this board.
Okay. I do want to follow back up with the understanding, thank you, Patty, and I mean, I do know you feel that way, and I know that there's, as I said, we don't have uniform or unanimous agreement, but if you have the opportunity to watch the facilities committee meeting of the whole, I think you might find it really.
It's only 3 hours.
It was a long meeting. You can fast forward, but.
I watched some of it.
Okay. I do think that, I can only speak for myself. I understand what you're saying about the bleachers. Initially, we thought only Prevo bleachers. Now we're talking Anki bleachers as well when you say the bleacher project. But the fact of the matter is that we had some very compelling information brought forth to us about ADA access, and this is ultimately about safety, and there are some real safety issues when it comes to ADA that, now is the time to address it. And I
I got you,
respect
but you
we feel
don't need a
differently.
multi-story maintenance building to do that.
Right.
You don't need to do a bunch of other things that have been now tied to this project that make
Ken.
the project bigger and cause the project to be delayed. So I agree, we need to address all those things. It has now been 2 years, the clock is still ticking. We're talking about the same exact problems, and we haven't moved it forward.
Well, I do appreciate that, and it's the other reason that I think we as a board should expect to work diligently this fall, because, and I would wholly encourage, if any of the candidates who are running for school board on either side, watch these meetings, get yourselves informed, so that when you come in December, you are up to speed, and we don't exert more time, educating. We know that we will have some new board members in December. We need all 8 of 9, no, 8. Who are newly running. You're
85. We only elect half of us at a time.
I understand that, but I think we have 8 new candidates of board members who have not previously served. Amy and Mike are already serving. Oh, and Chuck, so 7. The point of the story is get themselves educated and up to speed as quickly as you can. The numbers. 24,000 is 6% of a $400,000 project. So I would personally like to see language that if we're doing a project between 400,000 and 12 million, the 24,000 gets credited fully toward the 6%, because anything north of 400,000, the 6% exceeds 24,000. Is that the language? Because you were saying, well, they'd refund some, but then we'd still charge 6%. I get it. If we did a $350,000 project, we're paying 24,000. We should pay 24,000. They will have exerted a lot of time and energy. But somewhere between 400 and 12 million, 6% is 24,000.
So let me just clarify the difference between the two. The 24,000 represents actually getting you to a plan that we can all agree upon for them then to go into the design phase, which then kicks into your 6% construction costs. So that's the difference you have.
Okay.
Does that help you?
It does. It just, the kind of the squishiness of, well, we'd get back some of the 24,000 if we spend less than 12 million. If you guys have a
Right.
nailed down formula, fine. I just,
Yeah.
the
I think
squishiness of that is,
my
would wanna
issue,
tighten up.
my issue with all of them is they want money up front, and then they want to have the 6% on top of whatever the construction costs were. I was looking to get the best deal for the district by trying to get some of that upfront money
credited back.
credited back to
Okay.
us, but there had to be certain triggers for them that they could still make it work with the amount of money they're outlaying in advance. Does that make sense?
Yes, and it's articulated in the contract is what, okay, that's really all I wanted to know, is it's articulated. Okay, great, thank you.
I had one question, and if this unduly complicates things or is a lot of expense, please just say so and we'll move on. But one of the concerns that Mrs. Booker raised, and it's a real one, is that the big concrete blocks on Enki get used as bleachers and they really don't function necessarily very well as that. Is there a reasonably inexpensive way for us to put up some kind of movable outdoor bleacher that's temporary for a time and close off those bleachers? Is that a solution we want to look at for the Enki side while we're doing all of this? Or is it just too much distraction from getting this done?
Let me look into that, but let me say that if we were to do that, we'd have to go in there and excavate out that concrete
I would
hill.
say that was my concern.
So there is
yeah.
a cost factor involved with that one way or another you'll be paying for moving down the road.
Yeah.
The other thing I have to be careful of is, depending upon what we do, is that going to trigger an ADA review? And then it will
Got it.
require us to put in sidewalks before we have a plan as to exactly what the whole project
Yeah, and I
will
was
look
thinking
like.
something more like mobile that's actually like in front of those, like just taping those off and putting them up someplace else. And if it doesn't work, or even on the other side of the field, which I know is inconvenient for everybody, but I'm just thinking,
Yeah, the other side of the field strikes me as too far away because,
Right,
one, you're
'cause it's
you're
so
in the
far from the
swamp and the
parking.
wetlands back there. And secondly, if we were to put it on the turf, that side of the turf is used for
and you
practice.
damage the
and,
turf, yeah.
It could damage the turf. I'm not sure,
We have at Enki right now. I mean, what we've done to try to, was not a permanent,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
we've put up as this, the steps and the railings, has made it better. So it wasn't installed to be some type of permanent,
Okay.
because we knew we were looking into this.
Yeah.
And I think it has made it better. I think the piece would be to look at how did the spring, I don't know how this, because all of the structure that's there now, the railings, was up for all of spring sports. And I don't remember, I'm trying to think, I don't think we had any reports of injuries or falls since we've done the new railings, the temporary railings that are there.
I don't recall any off the top of my head, but I can certainly look into that further. Let me say that what was done was, it needed to be done because it's an unsafe situation. And, quite frankly, the way those bleachers were designed, it serves nobody. And I think that what we have done so far has been a stopgap measure, knowing that we're going to have to do a more permanent fix moving forward.
And I think one of the parents that actually had experienced a relative who had fallen, we actually had them come and give us some feedback on what triggered the fall, those pieces, so they worked with some of our people on what would be helpful. So we tried to, plan for what's there now to make sure that we're preventative, knowing that we have to still look at the long term.
Okay, I mean, I'd rather not get distracted with something else, but if we thought there was another interim measure we could take.
Yeah, I think,
Interesting idea, Sarah. And one thing you might look at is instead of, a set of 4 or 5 bleachers like you normally think of the portable bleachers, which we have had out there during other events, like the Katie Sampson and other big
Yeah, I think that's what I was
events,
thinking of.
we have had portable bleachers around the field. But one thing you could look at is just putting simple, single bleachers along the fence. So inside the fence, but just a row on either side of the entranceway to at least provide maybe 15 or 20 seats
Sure.
for somebody who is less mobile.
Sure.
Then it's, that
s-
could be something you could put up pretty easily.
We certainly could look at that. I do know that we do have some portable bleachers out there now along the, so the high school side of, as you look at the field going towards the high school, there's probably a 4-row temporary bleacher out there, at least one, if not two. But certainly,
Out there now.
But I think Patty's
Like-
talking about something that doesn't cause people to have to go down the slope and even approach
Yeah,
the
it
stairs.
needs to be up at the
Agreed.
top, so you
Agreed.
don't have to come down the
That's
stairs to
true.
begin with, yeah.
I mean, people.
I'm just saying if it's at the
People
top,
bring
you're
in
gonna fall down
their
the hill.
portable chairs and plop them up against the fence there, so we could put in just a couple single bleachers.
Sure.
Or, benches, I
We
guess.
could do that.
Benches, better term.
All right. He needs a recommendation.
Yeah, so he needs a recommendation from us, right, to take it to the full board.
correct.
So I'm in favor of this. I know it's been a long time coming. It's been 2.5, 3 years almost, and then I don't want to rehash the whole history of this thing, but it's been taking a while, so now we're moving forward correctly to do it right, finally. So I recommend we move it to the full board.
The Breslin group. I agree.
Agreed.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So next up,
Moving forward, we have a new work order system and district facility calendar. When I arrived here 6 months ago now, we had a preventive maintenance and work order system for the facilities department, which was based upon an access program that was created decade or so ago. It's inefficient. It's tough to track things. Things get lost very easily. Additionally, we have, our technology group has a ticketing system where teachers can put in for a work order for a particular problem with regards to a computer issue or a network issue or an app issue. That contract was coming up for renewal. Byron has indicated to me that that contract was valued about $20,000 annually. I looked at a system for maintenance, and we came across a company called Facilities Management Express. And we were able to get for basically $8,345 a year annually, so much less than what we would pay for just the technology, a planned maintenance, as well as maintenance requests, technology requests, schedule requests. We've included transportation requests for vans, that teachers can request a van, and that will go over to transportation to keep track of where the vans need to be. Inventory management. There are dashboards as well as analytics, as well as the ability for me to track aged work orders through an email system. The advantage to having one, in addition to this, is a comprehensive calendar as well. One of the problems we were running into is our facilities calendar was based upon an Outlook calendar, but it was individual Outlook calendars for each building, and there was no real consensus for one-stop shopping. And it became problematic in that you'd have to look in 5 and 6 different places to make sure that we have either security, custodial, technology, one of the maintenance guys, tech help, whether or not there's a billing issue, whether or not insurance was there. So there was quite a bit of work to go through it, and was somewhat inefficient. So looking at this, we thought, well, this is one-stop shopping. We can have everybody on the same system and do it for basically less than what you're currently paying for the technology group. We have started the process. There was a group of representatives from the business office, the schools, individual schools themselves, facilities, athletic director, technology, transportation, and myself that went through a month training on this, or a month free trial. We were able to load it up and run with it, and everybody came back with a very positive comment about the system. So that's, the company is called Facility Express, Management Express, and we've already started to implement the background data that we need to for inventory, for buildings, locations, work orders, technicians, things along those lines. So we're starting that whole infrastructure in place, and that will continue to grow, as well as the calendar. We're working with them, and they're uploading for us our individual calendars, as well as whatever we have in the program that Byron has. So we have a history, as well as what we have in the access moving forward. My hope is that this will be a much more efficient way of looking at things. We'll be able to track an inventory of parts and keep better track of what we're spending our money on, as well as keep track of equipment, so that we can at any time take a look at a piece of equipment and say, over the past 5 years, this piece of equipment has cost you X number of thousands of dollars in repairs, as well as have a comprehensive record of the preventative maintenance that needs to be done on some of the equipment that's out there. So,
Fantastic. So we're moving into the early 2000s.
believe it or not, you have
Fantastic.
exited the 1970s. Yes.
Wow.
Hey, Mark, this is great, and I appreciate the time that you took to look into this and get everything started. I appreciate you updating the other day. A couple questions have come to mind since we spoke. One, is there any kind of cost? Are you on your own to get all of that background data loaded in? Are they helping you with that? Is there any additional cost for that help?
They have a one-time setup fee of $4,172.
Okay.
And they're taking that data and uploading that for us. So Byron's been providing that, as well as we have, we'll have the same log on as we do with our computers, so it's a single log on system. So we're mirroring whatever our log on, an individual teacher or administrator or anybody that would use the system, whatever you're using to get on the computer system, you use here, so we don't have to worry about having two separate sets of passwords. And
Okay, and is it a web-based system, or is it, okay, so they are maintaining all the data
Correct.
there?
So if we have another fire somewhere else, we won't lose it all.
your mouth to God's ear, yes.
Just saying.
Well, so but that ties to, they have some kind of backup someplace else so that it doesn't get lost. And then, I trust you would think of this, but I used to do contracts like this and work with a system like this. You'll make sure that if we decide to leave them, they have to give us all our data back, we own it, and all the
Absolutely. We
analytics
own
that
the
go with it.
data. That's
Okay.
correct.
And it'll be downloadable into a reasonable format, it won't be, I mean, I've seen systems where yeah, here you
Oh,
go.
yeah.
And it's,
Yeah, the
it's
legal
in
discovery. Here.
code, yeah.
So that's something we already worked out with them.
Great.
There's another company out there that we looked at, was School Dude, much more expensive, much more prevalent throughout the industry. But several school districts have switched out of using School Dude because of the cost associated with it. This group had been nothing but flexible. So yes, when we looked at that, that was a concern of mine, is if we decide 2 years from now to go to School Dude or somebody else, is this all for naught? And they were very accommodating with that,
Great.
because I believe they've gotten that question before.
Sounds good.
So, couple of questions.
Sure.
Is this something, so this is one product they offer, this, work order facility software. Do you know, does this company have anything that would kind of interface? I'm wondering if this information over time, or if they had an adjacent product, would assist you with the capital planning and facilities planning that we've
Yes.
talked about needing.
Yes. So basically, under the inventory aspect of it, I can list down every piece of equipment we have, and then keep a complete background on that piece of equipment, date installed, amount of money it was originally cost, serial number, preventive maintenance, what it serves. We can keep track of all that and have that as a database moving forward. So yes, that would be helpful for the capital improvement moving forward. Is it a capital program? Not yet. They haven't developed that model.
But that's what I was going to say. I didn't know if they had that product as well.
Not
I
as
would
of yet.
imagine eventually.
Yeah, but with all the data in the database, you can do that yourself.
Right.
And then the facilities calendar, do they have a component, maybe not initially, but eventually, I envision people being, or, parents, community members, whatever, eventually being able to make their facility requests online and, upload their information, maybe create a user account. I'm the pack leader of my local Cub Scout. I create a user account, and this is how will there be an online public
Absolutely.
function potentially eventually to,
Actually, initially, once we get the calendar up and running, you'll have two type of users, one of which is in-house.
Internal, okay.
And then we'd have external, which would be outside groups that would want to utilize a facility request. we're setting up the protocols that would look like moving forward. But
Okay.
essentially, you as an outside group, so let's say you're a pack leader, for example,
Sure.
for a Cub Scout, and you wanted to use Ithan Elementary classroom, you could log on, become a user. You'd have to list your insurance, make sure the insurance is current, upload that, so we have that in the system.
Upload the document.
Upload the document, and then you could go ahead and make a request. We'd even be able to give you an estimate of a cost if that in fact is something that your category calls for.
Okay.
And then it will then go through a process of approval, and you'd be notified via email. Additionally, once it's approved, then every person, every touch point, we get an email. So if it's custodian, security, everybody would get a touch point email to say, Cub Scout or pack number 1234, Ithan will be in room 201, or room 012, let's say, because there's only one floor, between 6 and 8 on Monday night. After that, the custodian needs to go in there and make sure the place is clean, make sure the bathrooms are clean. Security needs to make sure the building's
Okay.
locked up at the end of the night.
All right, oh, that sounds great. I mean, super. Yeah, 21st century, you're right.
I have a couple
20.
questions to leverage actually off of both of them in a little bit of a different way. You mentioned being able to track serial numbers, et cetera. So one of our findings when we had our audits a couple years back was asset management. And I know Michelle and the finance team spent a lot of time trying to get our assets tagged and library of everything kept, and I know we need that for financial reporting, especially if we're taking any kind of depreciation. So will this be able to do that
Yes.
or interface with the system, the
Yes, so
financial?
as I understand it now, that's being tracked via Excel spreadsheet.
Right,
This will be able to be utilized with a barcode reader or a QC.
okay.
If we decide to go that route.
So do we have tags that we're using now for asset management that
We-
have standard format to it?
Yes,
Okay, so we could put a barcode on them or whatever and utilize that.
correct.
That would be good. Second thing, you had mentioned about the access. I was interested in asking a question. You said external users, internal users. I'm interested to understand, I appreciate being able to do the requests as an outside user. What kind of visibility will they have to the calendars? What spaces are in the school? If I'm an outside user and I'm logging in, what will I be able to see?
You will not be able to see our internal calendar. You will be able to see a form. You'll be able to see what schools are available. You'll be able to see a classroom, for example, and what that classroom might have. So that if you're looking for, let's say, a classroom and you're looking to have a smart board in that classroom, then that classroom would be able to list what's in that classroom. So if you're looking for a classroom, a smart board, projector, laptop, computer, whatever it happens to be, that would all be able to be checked off, and then that would go through the approval process.
Okay,
At no time do we tell in that calendar, that public calendar, who's in what building when. From a security standpoint, we don't want that. We do not give a map of the school in any way, shape, or form, because that's a security issue, we don't want that. All we're doing is trying to make it easier instead of having a multi-page application that sometimes can be onerous and papers get lost, is to have a online system, so once somebody puts it in, there's a receipt that they put it in, and then we could track it accordingly. And then give the business office the opportunity then to assess a fee, if in fact that group would qualify as a fee-based group.
okay. That's great. In the existing system, the initial request gets sent into the principal, or it
Correct.
did till previously, up to this point. And the principal had the yes or no first pass on
Sure.
whether they would allow this space, and then it would come to the business office for indication of whether there was cost or whatever associated with it, right?
Correct.
So how will that work?
Same way. So that's what we're setting up now, is the decision tree, essentially. So once those come in, if it's for Radnor Middle School, it will be routed over to the principal or his or her designee. They would have the thumbs up, thumbs down. That doesn't mean it's approved. It doesn't,
Right.
because they give a thumbs up, thumbs down. Just that, okay, we can accommodate them on this day, for this room, for that period of time. It would then be forwarded over to the business office for review. Business office would approve it. The people would get an email back saying you've been approved to use, again, they'll use the middle school room 413 on Tuesday afternoons from September to October from 4 to 8 p.m. Here is the fee that's associated with that. Additionally, then, at that time when that's approved, and they accept that agreement and that cost, that estimate, then the custodians would get an email, security would get an email, maintenance would get an email, as well as the building would get an email confirmation that somebody's in that room at that time.
Okay, so equally then, which is good, and so equally then our security guards, while they're doing tours around the building, will be able to double check who's in what spaces.
That's
Because
correct.
that's been a problem in the past too, especially gym,
Yes.
especially at the high school.
Yes. Well,
People just come in and use the gym.
if I could address that specifically, so one of the problems that we have run into in the past because of the system that we've had is they do a paper calendar on Thursday. Thursday mornings when it's printed out. Because the gyms are used by so many different groups and our students as well, people get bumped out of the gym if there's a sporting event that's rained out and our kids need to have the gym. Group A or B or C, we have first right of refusal. Our kids get in there first, right? So the security guards don't know that because that changes literally an hour before or 2 hours before. What we envision is that the security guards, custodials, and maintenance folks will be able to look at it through a device, whether it be an iPad or whatever, and see instantaneously any update that takes place, which will help to address that. Additionally, to your point specifically, there are people who utilize our facilities that do not sign out for it. If it's not on this calendar and they walk in and somebody's in that gym, then they're supposed to leave. The security guards are directed that you're supposed to leave, you're not authorized to be in the gym. It's not the, oh, I just called somebody and it was approved at 4 o'clock in the afternoon thing. Nope, because this should be updated instantaneously.
That's good.
Does that help you?
That's very beneficial. The authorization levels internal, so how will that work? I'm assuming that there's gonna be like an administrative level where you can see everything.
Yes,
I would assume principals have that ability within their own buildings?
correct, within their own buildings, but not the district. The athletic director would see for the district, although his primary functionality
Okay.
is the high school. He does also oversee what goes on at the middle school from a sports standpoint, as he's trying to coordinate our sports teams and what facilities we have available.
Okay, so, and equally then I guess staff or whatever, would they be more like an external user from that
Well, they'd be
perspective, or what?
more
what
of
will
somebody
that
to
be?
view. So if a teacher, they'd be able to view things. They wouldn't necessarily be able to modify things.
Okay,
Only an administrator would have to do that, and there's different levels of administrator.
okay,
So there'd be a super user. So for example, Byron likely would be one, or one of his designees from the technology group. The building principals would have access to their buildings. Mike Friel would have access to athletic things and things that go on in the high school, because he does
Okay.
coordinate rooms at the high school. But that's not to say that Mike Friel will be able to coordinate what goes on at Wayne Elementary.
okay, cool.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
So I have one other question related to the being web-based or cloud-based, I guess is really the latest
Optimal,
terminology.
yeah.
What kind of security do they offer in terms of security of data up on their systems? It's a huge problem. Hacking is a massive issue, and with visibility to everything of what's going around the district, that's a high concern for me.
They have certain protocols in place. I can certainly get you more detail. I'm not prepared to discuss that. That's really,
Okay.
to be quite candid with you, I kind of rely upon the technology group to deal with those types of things, because that's a little bit out of my wheelhouse, but I can
Sure.
certainly get that information for you.
But I'd like to know we've vetted
Sure.
that.
Yep, we did.
Okay.
Absolutely. Byron and I had long conversations, and Byron had conversations with them independently of that as well.
Yeah, so I'd like to understand that.
Sure.
Are they using encryption? How are they doing it?
They are
Yeah.
using encryption. I do know
Okay.
that.
All right,
But
cool.
what encryption there is, I can't answer that specifically. But
Okay.
they are using encryption.
So I'd be interested if Byron wants to send me something, that'd be great. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Everybody good?
Okay. Next item.
No,
on
I
the-
got 20 minutes of questions here.
Oh, sure. I have one question. It's 27 parts, yes.
Just kidding. I'm good.
Okay, great. Next item on the agenda
Favorite
is
topic, the trail.
the trail letter. So if you recall, during the last general board meeting that we had, business board meeting, Peter Simone of the Trail Group made a presentation to the board regarding what they're doing moving forward with the trail. In that presentation, he indicated that he needed to provide to the Federal Highway Administration and PennDOT the ability that he needed to notify them that the school district is aware that a temporary occupancy would be in place for the trail, that we were aware of that, and that we at some point will go ahead and enter into some sort of easement agreement with the township or this entity for the trail itself. In order for him to move forward with his permitting, he needed to have the school district sign off on the fact that we are aware of the project, we are in general support of the project, but recognize the fact that there are some things that need to be worked out moving forward. He sent through an original draft of the letter, and I had some concerns over some of the language that we might have maybe limited ourselves moving forward. We sent this over to the solicitor, and he made some changes to it in conjunction and conversations, I guess, with Peter, as well as his consultant, his environmental consultant. And the letter the board has before you tonight is the letter that the solicitor had agreed to, that we could sign off on, that does not relinquish any of our rights moving forward, but gives Peter the ability then to take this and apply for what he needs to through the various permitting agencies, so.
So I'm not really great at this kind of stuff on the fly. I'm going to ask for time to be able to look at this
Absolutely.
and provide feedback.
Absolutely.
Where do we stand with regards to the agreement? So we had a draft agreement, again, probably well over a year ago. I know we provided feedback on the draft to the agreement, and I guess everything kind of was waiting to see what was going to pan out.
Yeah.
So where do we stand with the agreement? Because there were some pretty specific things in there that needed to be.
Yeah, I think we were waiting for them to actually come up with a final design so that we could agree to what they wanted, right?
We mean
'Cause
the-
you just
the
kinda
permanent
wanted a
easement.
blank.
Yeah, but there
permanent
was
easement?
just,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
but
the
there was.
permanent easement
Yeah.
agreement is
But
what
the
you're,
permanent easement agreement had a
Depended on
number
the
of things
design.
in it, terms that needed
Yeah.
to be cared for.
Yeah, and there were things in there that we wanted in there, like a shade structure and all this, that were supposed to be in there, and then he was like, oh, I never agreed to that.
Well, and
It's
we
like,
also wanted snow removal provisions
Yeah,
and
a whole bunch of
other,
stuff.
and other liability provisions, that kind of stuff. So do we know? What is the status of that?
I think the status is we're waiting for them to come to us now for that final discussion about us needing to approve that easement. So they have been waiting, and Peter, I believe, has been waiting for these PennDOT pieces.
Correct.
And they can't officially come to us for the easement request until these other pieces were done. So it was supposed to be, I think he was originally hoping for this time. I think it could be any month now that they will come back to us, and then we will have to then go back through those pieces, and what do we agree upon, we have to decide.
August deadline for something. He
There
had to
was, I want
submit
to say,
a
he was
design.
hoping, he
But
was
my-
hoping for August, September, so.
I guess my concern is if we sign off on this and they go and they get agreement from PennDOT, it's tied our hands with regards to the
No,
agreement.
this is just a temporary construction easement that we recognize the fact that they will enter into an agreement at some point in the future with us. But he could not proceed. It's one of these things which came first, the chicken or the egg, as it's been explained to me, that he needed to get the construction easement conceptually okayed by the school board before he could go ahead and get the approval from PennDOT. Once he gets the approval from PennDOT, then he can enter into conversations with the school district about the permanent easement.
Yeah, your concerns
we did do that
on
as a
this
board.
last
Yeah,
paragraph
yeah,
here.
it
Yeah,
is
well, that's
actually-
what I wanted to
Yeah.
read through them.
It's that, I
Yeah.
mean, no actual construction activities or entry on the district property will take place until a written easement agreement has been prepared and approved by the board of directors at a public meeting per the requirements of school.
Yeah, and
code.
I appreciate that, but
But,
does
yeah,
does it bind us in terms of our ability to get an agreement that we actually are happy with? Well,
See, and I
maybe
think
that
it-
I'm happy with, maybe some other people
I
don't
mean,
have
no,
as
I mean,
much
it says it's
concern.
not, it doesn't create an easement or right of access, and it doesn't authorize any
Right.
construction
I think it
activities.
puts more pressure on them, honestly, Patty. I hear what you're saying, but they're going to continue to go down the road here. And we've been very clear, we're not signing an easement that doesn't address the concerns that we have fiduciarily and, as a district. So the conditions that we're going to set forth in that easement, like, they're not, oh, they're nice to have, or we'd like to have them. This is what we're saying needs to be the case. So, and they've known that, and please reiterate that to them, that the list of concerns that we brought forth to them were real and genuine and actual, and
So you don't need anything from us, because you already signed the letter.
This was just an update.
yeah.
Because the board essentially approved the fact that I could
Right.
sign the letter during the last meeting. I was just bringing
And
up
this
to
isn't
speed.
letting them, I mean, like we said that last paragraph, they can't do anything unless we agree to an easement at a public meeting of the whole.
Can I
Whatever
ask
goes.
one clarifying
Yeah.
question around the trail? Just a quick question around the trail. Because I've heard conflicting bits of information, and so I am confused. At the entrance of King of Prussia Road and Route 30, where Pike Field is on
Yes.
our side,
Yes.
and the stormwater retention for this 476 is on the right-hand side if you're coming northbound.
Okay, yes.
Right?
Yes.
And the trail is going to come down and around that corner and cut down all our beautiful trees, but I'm hearing mixed information about what happens to that corner with respect to the construction. Is there any intended curb cut changes on our side of the street related to the construction and/or flow of traffic, not trail related, on that corner? I know there's changes happening at our entrance in on King of Prussia Road,
Yes.
on the King of Prussia Road side there.
Yes.
But down at the corner, is there any intended curb modifications for construction?
The only, I hope I understand the question. The only thing I'm aware of is that there will be a handicap ramp placed in there that will be more code compliant than currently is there.
Yeah, because there is one there now, which they
Right.
only put in like 3 or 4 years ago.
Right,
but-
so they're going to be
Stimulus.
widening
But
that.
other than the entrance of a ADA ramp
That
to
is
get
the
in there, that
only-
is all that's supposed to happen.
That is my
No
understanding.
widening of the road.
That is my
Wait,
understanding.
wait, there may be widening of the road, but not on our
On
side
our
of the-
side.
Side,
I
right.
That's different, yeah.
appreciate it.
No,
On
that's
our
not-
side.
Not on our side, that's my
None of the
understanding.
designs or plans or,
I don't
Concepts.
remember seeing it when I looked at it,
That's
but
what I
other
mean, yeah.
people have said to me, no, you're wrong, they're
our
widening your side. That's why I was asking.
At this point, it looks as if the widening, at least in front of the bus garage and in front of our entrance, is on the other side of the road. There is, when I have a weekly call with the construction management group, just to kind of coordinate our efforts with regards to buses, with regards to
To getting
traffic
in and out.
Right. And then certainly with what construction's going on, so that we can make sure we have free flow for our activities. And at no point has any of that been discussed. And the plans that I have seen, at no point has there been anything indicating that the road is going to be wide on our side.
Okay,
The only thing that, as you pointed out, was the entrance to the ramps at Raider Road and King of Prussia Road, that the handicap access ramps could be wider than what may normally have been there,
okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
because the trail is much wider than a sidewalk.
oh, it's a 12-foot
Right.
lane
Bus
of
up-
traffic.
Sure. So the bus garage up,
It's like paving another.
the bus
Anyway.
garage update, just to give you an update on that very quickly. We, as the board might remember, we engaged Fidavia, Construction Management Group, to come in to assist on this. They have had the architect out, the engineers are out, so we're in the process of creating drawings of the existing building, as well as the site plan. The trailer is going to hopefully be delivered Monday. It's scheduled to be delivered Monday, and that's for the dispatcher, the router, and then John to have an office space instead of being at the high school, because they want to be closer to the bus drivers. The inside of the building has been sufficiently clean that we were able to reactivate. There's a white tile area, I'm not sure for those of you who've been there, but kind of a general seated area for the bus drivers. They're able to come back in, utilize that area, as well as the restrooms in the building, so we've eliminated the porta potties. When we do the construction, we're going to phase that in so as to minimize the impact on the drivers. But again, we anticipate that the work probably should begin, hopefully beginning of October. And we'll have to put this out for competitive bid, so the board will vote on that as well, but the insurance company will pay for, obviously, the restoration from fire damage. That's all I have.
Fantastic.
I just have one other quick question related to all of that.
Yes.
And Ken knows this, the bus across the driveway. It
Yeah.
is beyond an eyesore, in my opinion. I appreciate that it is further now back on the property than it was before. That's, for me, that's not acceptable in Radnor, to have a bus parked across our parking lot. It's filthy dirty. It just looks like crap, to be honest,
What
to
is
be
it there
frank.
for?
It's a
I've been meaning
safety
to, I've been
issue.
meaning to
Safety
ask you.
We
issue.
talked about it's a safety issue.
It's a safety
How
issue
can it-
because parents and people are using the high school as a cut-through, and they were moving the barricades. Yeah,
But the high
hard to
school's
believe.
been there for how many years? And if we really have a
Because of
problem
the
with that,
construction
Because of the
traffic.
construction and traffic.
so if we really, and if we have a problem with that right now, we will have a problem with that going forward. And we need to have a conversation with the township about what they're gonna do about that.
We actually have, but if I could interrupt you real quick, the issue was the road being opening in front of Raider Road, and there was already somebody who drove into the ditch with the guy in the ditch. So the concern was the safety for the construction folks, as well as any student that might be up there. By blocking that off, it forced everybody through the Radnor Chester Road entrance to enter and exit. We were looking at that as what way we could put up some sort of barricade that people wouldn't take down. And they took down the barricades, and the people from Penn noticed it on a regular, consistent basis. Our people were constantly up there putting barricades back up again.
So people get out of their car, move a barrier, drive through the parking lot to get out to the other end.
Correct,
It's got to
but don't
take
put the
them
battery
longer
barrier.
to take time to get out of their car to move a barrier than it does to go. But I mean, all I'm saying is, it's not new. The high school's been there for a gajillion years. If we've got a problem because the construction is creating a bad situation, we need to have the township deal with it. Have the township put a police officer sitting there. Have the township put a police vehicle at the entrance to the driveway. But to put our buses across the it looks terrible. It's unacceptable to me.
It's being removed this week because they're done the work that they need to do immediately in front of the school, as previously agreed, so that's not to interfere with our
So
students' traffic.
will the township get involved in this? Have we engaged the township to get involved in people using our property as a cut-through as a result of the construction?
I can't specifically address that. I do know that we've engaged the township as to having a police officer up there as the buses exit in the morning, so that we have free and clear access back onto that road, much like we do here at the
Yeah,
Arena
until we get the
School.
traffic light up, we're gonna need that help for sure.
Well,
Yeah,
and
because
then
it's gonna be a mess.
depending upon how that traffic light is timed, we may want to look at that additionally as well.
Okay,
Just saying.
yeah.
Just
I
saying.
realize this is your first summer through all of this, so, and I appreciated the list that I did get to hear while I was driving in the car of all the work that you guys are doing, and I don't want to, come across as being like too obnoxious here, but
Not at all.
there's a standard, right? It's Radnor, there's a standard, and it's something I just needed to bring forth.
Let me say that the bus was certainly not the best looking to do. It was an excess bus that we didn't have to worry about having to pull off because of students. But I have to tell you, probably the most effective roadblock anybody's ever seen.
Well, sure, sure.
Well, yeah, it's funny, I drive by there almost every day on my way to work, and I'm like, wonder why this, I mean, and I know that you don't do things for stupid reasons, so I know there had to be a reason, and I just never got around to bothering you to ask why, so I'm glad you asked why, but.
I got
it's
stuck
all-
in traffic near some people there
but
who
I
looked really
assumed-
antsy, and I knew exactly immediately why I was
I
there.
assumed
and
it was because people, that had to do with the construction.
I chuckled and said-
I assumed the construction guys were parking on our property.
So did I, but to me, that's not the solution. To me, the township needs to engage. They've allowed for construction to
Well,
happen there.
it's
There
gonna
needs
end
to be
next week, you
something.
said,
Well,
so.
and this was the most
at this point,
expedient
it's moot.
solution than calling the township and waiting for a week or two for something to get resolved.
Yeah, well, plus then the other problem is gonna be when you take the bus down, because we gotta get in and out with the kids, or people are gonna continue to use that as a cut-through when school's in process, which is gonna be
They
even
may
a
very
bigger
well.
nightmare,
may.
right? So that's why I'm saying we just kinda need to deal with it now. A few people getting pulled over and getting tickets, the word spreads, people get the point, they won't
Revenue
cut
source.
through.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
You got any business?
I do. Two quick things. Just as a point of information, I want to let you know that I got a letter from the PSBA Platform Committee. I'd tell you this at another meeting, but this is the committee on which I serve, that our change to the platform language was accepted and should be on the delegate thing in October. I can give you more details later, but we voted on a platform change at the board meeting. The other thing is just a follow-up to Ally Bauer's request. So I've seen the reports that the township got, these highlighted red and green and yellow, and the reports that they're asking for PICO, I think are slightly different from what you are. So I think, Ally's going to reach out to you about getting this specific permission about the specific report that they've been utilizing, that they, and I just want you to know to expect that.
Sure, I
All right?
appreciate that.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did we
that was
ever
it.
did we ever get the feedback or the data around the solar panels on Radnor Elementary School and what benefit that's having? Because
While
if
ago.
PICO's gonna actually look at that kind of stuff, and I'm not sure that the young lady, I didn't hear who it was, who spoke earlier, that brought up the idea of the green stuff, but I know we have in the past had a comprehensive list of all the green activities that we're taking in part of, including those solar panels. It might be worth educating the community again
Sure.
on the things that we are doing.
Sure, absolutely. We can certainly do that. The solar panels, and I can certainly get you the data, but from what my recollection of that specifically is that you're making $2.78 a day off those solar panels.
Yeah, I remember we got
It
a
was-
report on them a long time ago. They weren't wired right, they're old, they're dirty, this, that, and the
Yeah,
other.
They apparently were old, as I gather. They were given to us for next to nothing. Our in-house forces installed them. The problem sometimes with solar panels, historically, the older ones would degrade much quicker than the newer ones. So I imagine if that was put in, and I don't have an exact date, but I imagine that was put in close to the time that building was built, which was, so, you know, you're 15 years, and, you know, those solar panels at that generation probably had a life expectancy of about 15 years. You know, before it becomes, you know, I don't want to say inefficient, but your efficiency drops dramatically.
But of course, there's other green stuff that we're doing, including the building across the street and, you know, green.
And all the
that
LED
other
lights, all the LED lights that we're doing, sure.
New business, anyone? Anyone? All right, public comment. Now it's time for the second public comment, and I know Ms. Saddis is chomping at the bit. Or are you sending Jeff up here? Oh, okay, you're sending your representative. You're sending counsel up. You just turned your mic off. Now it's on.
On now?
Now you're on.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now,
My
Jeff.
voice doesn't carry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeff Bajukas, 228 South Wayne Avenue. I just want to address a couple of the issues that were raised by Ms. Booker, which I've heard from other people, and I think it's really important to understand the sequencing of how we've got to where we are on this infrastructure project. And I know I have limited time, so I'm going to take a limited amount of time with it. So I think it's fair to say when the project first started, it was a bleacher-only project. And in fact, there was some discussion about doing something broader than that, and that the bleacher-only aspect of it carried the day. And Michelle, who's not here, actually had 2 architects come on site and look to see if the township could simply replace the home bleachers. And what you were all told by those professionals was no, you cannot do that. And there were 2 reasons why you were told no preliminarily. One was the fact there was a retaining wall up against the school that was degrading, and the other one was that there are massive ADA problems with access to the bleachers. Serving on the facilities committee and having talked with Schrader, and they're experts on issues like ADA issues, because I think we went into it not trying to make something gold-plated or extravagant, but really knowing that that was going to be an issue and trying to be respectful of the township's finances and recognizing that we were going to have to defend everything that would be recommended as a committee, we asked them what we have to do to comply with the ADA, what has to be done. And what the professionals told us was, you can't just put in bleachers without fixing the ADA issues surrounding them. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but a couple that are going to be very significant that we all recognize are: 1, the bleachers are too close to the school. Right now, they block the emergency exits of the pool. They are not ADA compliant. So the current location of that retaining wall and the bleachers is simply too close. There's about 6 feet of clearance. You need about 12. That's a major engineering issue. You can't design build that. You don't know what condition the retaining wall is. Mark and his people have done some exploration of that, but until you have real site studies, which we don't have, you're not going to know the true extent of that. The walkway, I'll call it ramp, down to the football field is not ADA compliant. The sidewalks are not ADA compliant. The curb cuts are not ADA compliant. There are currently two parking spots that are adjacent to Prevost and Enke that are handicap parking spots. That's not enough parking for the new bleachers that we would be put in. The problem with doing projects like this piecemeal is when you step back, there almost always is something you've missed. We've hit upon that today. We're talking about Enke. If we had done the bleachers 2.5 years ago, Enke wasn't even contemplated. It wasn't even something that we were going to look at. Now we've had multiple falls there, and I think we all recognize there's something that has to be done. So I commend the board. I too would love to see the bleachers fixed and done and move on. But I commend the board for having the vision to look at this project as a whole. The other thing the professionals have told us is that you can't do these kinds of projects without going over our turf field. So we're gonna have to bring into the factoring replacing that turf field. There's also which is already budgeted. It's already in the budget. But I'm not, again, this is not some gold-plated jewel to wear around our necks. This is something that has to be done. This hasn't been principally touched in 35 years. And the idea that we can put a Band-Aid on it or make some quick fix is just kicking the can down the road. I mean, we have a standard in Radnor, right? We have a standard. That standard applies to the athletic facilities as well as the bus parked on the back side of the campus or the front side of the campus. I don't know which side it is, actually. But in any event, none of what the committee did, and we took a tremendous amount of time talking with professionals, was designed to do anything but do the most economical, efficient, cost-effective, and necessary repairs and construction to this site. Anything less than that is just going to cost us more money down the road and uncover more problems that we really should be addressing now. I mean, you are all in this bind in part because when the school was renovated, they stopped at the back of the building and didn't address any of this. The Prevost bleachers were built in what, 1955, 54? That's when those were built. They were enlarged in the 80s, I believe. So the pool was built in 1971. I mean, we've done all this research and we've sat down and tried to be very deliberate and very careful about what we're even contemplating. And so I commend all of you for putting on to the full board the idea of retaining the architect to really tell you what we can do, what the costs will be, to do a site study so we understand what the conditions on the site are so that you can talk comprehensively about how to fix this so we don't have a mistake like the Enki bleacher area, so that we have ADA accessibility. There are 2 stalls and 1 urinal for all the male patrons who come on our campus to watch a football game, to watch a soccer game. The facilities themselves need to be fully evaluated, and anything less than that is just not, it's not what this board's going to do, and it's not what the school and the community deserve. And I know you all understand that, so I appreciate you moving this onto the board and moving forward to do a first-class project that would make Radnor proud and lives up to Radnor standards. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Anyone else? Mr. Henkel, how are you?
Hi, Tim Henkel, 462 Barclay Road, Rosemont. Hadn't intended to speak tonight, but I think it's an important civic lesson for my children who have come to each one of these meetings, that the need for continued advocacy will kind of never diminish. They prefer prepared remarks. This is going to be a little more off the cuff. But I too need to address Commissioner Booker's comments. Your concerns are valid. We all should be responsibly thinking about public finance, public spending. I'm sure you've taken an oath in that regard. And your opinions are important too. They're opinions that others may share. I would expect that those others are equally uninformed. That the comments you've made are substantially incorrect, and that there's a great opportunity to learn, as we've learned, meeting after meeting after meeting. In particular, I think you called it the Committee of the Whole, where the Finance Committee and the Facilities Committee joined to really talk about what has happened in the past, what has been under-improved, what investment has been made, and how long it's been since investment has been made. And Jeff chronicled some of that, and I assure you, a very, very little bit of it. We came to this project on behalf of my son, their siblings, because our boy who never would have played on that football field, never would have kicked a soccer ball out there, was also not being able to watch the games, not being able to participate in the spectator event that is a full school activity. Whether you're in the band or find your way onto that field to protest some mass shooting someday, you need to be able to get there. And that was not the case, and not safely the case, really, for anyone. What we learned is that that bleacher improvement project was not going to do it. We saw some of the things that were originally drawn up by some of the design-build bleacher contractors, and they were simply going to add a seat that was inaccessible, wasn't going to get anybody anything. Perhaps 5 seniors could have sat there, but they couldn't have gotten there without a significant amount of help from caregivers and others. And so it became clear that we had an opportunity here to do something great, and we had a great risk to permanently lock in obstacles that have been there for a long, long time, and to make short-sighted improvements like the drop-off area that is accessible to no one. You drop a person off there and you will get nowhere. Not to the parking lot, not to the school, not to the pool, not to the field, not even to your car. And so these are the kinds of things that can happen if we don't now finally holistically take a look at this. And this is where these conversations happen. I think very, very responsible conversations. I have all these chicken scratch notes on a piece of paper that includes my congratulations at the last meeting about the continued momentum of this project and the responsibilities that have been taken, not just to get to the right conclusion, but to get there in the right way, which may, yes, take some patience, may, yes, take longer, but should accomplish the desired results. And so I guess I would concur exactly almost with the words that Jeff said. I mean, the Band-Aids are evident, they're falling off. The time to make up for lost time has passed. It's time to go full ahead forward with something that really can be very special and something that we can be really, really proud of, something that we all will want to put our names on and keep our names on for a long time. So I would reiterate the invitation to all board members, all potential board members, to really invest themselves in this topic, which is complicated. It has a lot of depth to it. It has a lot of parameters to it. We have peeled away an onion that now needs to be really looked at and understood, lest we strike off in directions that are more opinion-based than fact-based. And so, thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Anyone else? Doc? No? Okay, that's all we have for tonight. We're adjourned.
We'll take a short